Welcome to episode 15 of the Mile 62 podcast. I'm your host, Richard Elkins, coming to you from Austin, Texas. Had an exciting weekend this past weekend. It was Bandera 100K. Always look forward to that race every year. It was my third time running it, and just been recovering all week. The main headline for this podcast is Jackalope Jam 48-hour ruck race, and in the second part of the podcast I will talk about my Bandera 100K race recap. I'm excited. The Jackalope Jam is in middle of February. It takes place in Houston, outside of Houston, Texas, and Cat Springs, Texas. Everyone knows the 7IL Ranch that lives in Texas. That's where Habanero 100 takes place, and a few other races, including Jackalope Jam. When I registered for this race last year, I registered for the 72-hour. It's a loop course. It's an out and back course. Basically, it's 0.75 miles out this gravel road and then 0.75 miles back. So round trip is a mile and a half. My plan was to run, hike for 72 hours and see how far I can go. I watched a video on the race this week from previous years and been kind of itching to try a ruck race. And this race offers a ruck race. So I decided today to change from 72-hour run, walk, hike race, whatever you want to call it, to a 48-hour ruck race. What is a ruck race? It's actually growing very fast, just like Spartan and other types of adventure racing. Ruck racing is when you carry a ruck. What is a ruck? A ruck is a backpack that's weighted down. They call it a ruck. And there's some companies out there that specialize in making special backpacks to carry weight for these ruck races so that they don't chafe you too bad. Basically, it fits you very well, very strong. And the common size ruck plate is 20 pound and 30 pound. So these packs will carry either plate. The race that I've entered is what they call the lightweight division, which is 20 pound. So I've ordered a speed ruck, they call it, from Ruck, which is one of the biggest companies making ruck packs. They also have a race series as well, and a 20 pound plate. So I plan to get that in a few days and start training. But I'm excited. It's my first ruck race, and I'm going to be doing it for 48 hours, so not starting small. So let's see how far I can go. My goal is to try to hit 100 miles within 48 hours with the ruck. So let's see what you can do. I'm going to really try hard to win this race. So my plan is to follow some strategies that I've studied from like Bob Hearns. He's very famous 24-hour run-walk strategy, and see how far I can go. I'm going to set up my tent on the course, and it'll kind of be my base camp for 2 days. Planning on taking just many different types of shoes and all the equipment that I might need. I learned a lot from camping out at Bandera. So I've kind of fine-tuned my base camp strategy every time I've done it. Learn what works, what doesn't work. You don't know until you try it. Previous times I tried to sleep on a rubber mat, and that just doesn't work. This time I've used a blow-up mattress out at Bandera, and that worked pretty well. So I'm excited about this ruck race. I've heard a lot of things about time races. I've never done any kind of time race, even a running or a ruck race. I've always heard that you meet everyone on the course because it's a short course, and there's even more community than a long ultra race, and I'm excited about it. So that's going to take place in the middle of February. Right now I'm just recovering from Bandera. We're about 4 days out. I think I'm going to start running tomorrow. I've been biking this week, kind of active recovery. That's always my plan. I think I'm going to start doing some runs tomorrow. Another thing I've done is I've joined a base mileage group with Rogue Running in Austin. It's a online based, basically somewhat coaching and helping you build your plan to build your mileage up. I really want to double my base mileage this year. Been averaging probably 30, 40 miles a week, and I want to get up into the 50, 60, even 70 range later in this year. And I want to do it in the right way. So I've been incorporating speed workouts during the last 2 months. I really don't know what I'm doing, how much to do. Been doing things like Yasso 800s, 1600 meter repeats. I know the workouts, but I don't know how often I should be doing them, and then planning some tempo runs too. Basically, my whole running career, I've just basically been doing kind of marathon workouts, everyday running, heart rate workouts. Sorry, there's a loud car passing by there. Basically running the same way all the time, which coaches always say on all the podcasts we listen to, don't do that. Well, I'm trying to change that. So I'm really trying to incorporate more maybe tempo, speed workouts, maybe more strides, hill repeat workouts. But I just want to do the right mix, and the right mix for ultra running. There are a lot of books out there that tell you how to do it for 5K, 10K, even marathon, but for ultra running, they don't really tell you. And I've got all the ultra running books. So I'm working with Rogue Running in Austin, and one of the coaches for this base building is an ultra runner, so I'm hoping to learn something. Okay, let's get into Bandera 100K race report. Like I said, it was an exciting weekend. I got off work early on a Friday and went out there, set up base camp. Kind of hustled out there because really bad weather was coming in, heavy rain, hail, heavy wind. Not ideal for setting up a tent, and I knew that. So I wanted to get out there before dark and set up, and I did do that. I got out there and set it up, and I actually placed my tent in front of a large cedar tree thinking that I would block the wind. Someone told me the wind was coming from the south. Actually, it came from the north. So I didn't have much luck there. Anyways, it held up really well, but boy, was it an eventful night. I mean, heavy rain. I was lucky I didn't get any rain in my tent. My brother sat up next door to me, and he got a lot of water in his tent. Ended up having to go to a hotel. So I didn't get any rain, and I set up a mattress. It was comfortable. Wasn't too cold. But later in the night, the wind came, and I'm talking heavy wind. My tent was really violently shaking side to side for several hours. It was kind of like being in a base camp on Mount Everest. It's what I would imagine it to be like. Anyways, my tent didn't blow away, and I ended up getting some sleep, which was surprising. Got up around 4:30, same as I do every day, expecting a 6 a.m. race start. And races always have started at 6 a.m. Well, damn it, when you get a packet from the race director, you should read it. I didn't read it, thinking I've done this race twice before. I thought, well, it's going to start at 6 a.m. I went down to the main start area. There was a bunch of few people using the toilets, and there wasn't many people on that. It was about 5:15. I said, the race is starting at 6 a.m., right? One guy laughed. He goes, no, it starts at 7:30. I was like, oh, man. So anyways, I got up really early and got well caffeinated. So the race got started around 7:30. I was well prepared, well caffeinated, and started going out on the first loop. And the start of the first loop, you go up a pretty big hill, pretty rocky hill, and I wasn't going very fast, but I tripped, but I caught myself. And when you catch yourself from a fall, it really jars your hamstring, and it really hurt. It jarred my right hamstring, and I guess it was probably a couple hundred yards. It felt okay again. I was a little bit worried that I trashed myself at the beginning of the race, but things went on. got used to the rocky, very technical terrain. Bandera is just solid rocks, loose rocks, and technical sections, the whole loop. And I didn't use my poles on the first loop, but after the first loop, I wish I had. I think it would have helped me with my balance, and I could have gone through the rocky area, which is most of the course, much faster. I hadn't done that in previous Bandera races, but I think going forward, if I run it again in the future, I will use my poles on both loops. The main runnable sections, there's a little bit here and there, and probably the last 10 to 12 miles, there's about 6 or 7 miles that are very runnable. But most of the race, I could use my poles. But like I said, it went pretty uneventful. I got through with the first loop, and about the same time I had in previous years. I was a little bit disappointed. I didn't really improve that much, but I felt stronger going into the second loop. So I think my pacing was good. My time wasn't as better compared to previous years on the first loop, but I felt better going into the second loop. I remember in previous years going in the second loop, I was just completely trashed and had to hike too much of it. The second loop, I was able to have a pretty good pace, not as fast as the first loop, but I had my poles. I think I worked through the rocks faster. But what happened was later on in the night, the temperature really dropped. It dropped down to the low 30s, and I knew it was going to get colder, and I knew it could get freezing. So I put my Solomon windbreaker in my hydration pack. I was using my Ultra Aspire Zygos pack, which is a great pack. It's got a lot of great room in the back as well, and I had my Solomon coat back there, and I also had my gloves. I always suggest use gloves with poles. If you use them for many hours, you're out on the trails as long as I am, in the mid pack to, early, front of the back of the pack. You're going to be out there for a long time. If you use poles without gloves, they're going to tear your hands up. You're going to chafe your hands. Well, in this case, I needed them for that reason, but it was also cold. So I put on my coat and my gloves probably about 2 hours into the second loop, and put my pack on top. And the last few hours of the race were very cold, and but I just kept moving. When I was moving, I felt not too bad. It was still cold, but when you're moving, you keep your body temperature up, and you're able to keep going. What was surprising is I saw so many runners out there in t-shirt or tank top and shorts. I really don't know how they did it. Boy, there's some tough people who were out there. And some people got so beat up towards the end of the race that I saw, especially in the last 10 miles, I passed a lot of people. They were grabbing large pieces of wood, which were similar to like a hiking stick, and using to move along. People just had really trashed legs, and they didn't have hiking poles. So, and a lot of those people were not wearing enough clothes. So I was really concerned that they were at hypothermic risk, and I didn't have any clothes to share with them. But there were quite a few people like that, and I just big thumbs up to those that were able to finish in that condition. They're really strong at what they were doing. One thing that we ran into that was kind of an issue in the second loop is, there's about 5 aid stations on the loop every 5 miles. The first probably 3 aid stations didn't have too much food. The runners in front had really taken all the ramen noodles and hot foods that you kind of look forward to. And I gave some feedback to the race director after the race about that. And I don't know, my opinion is pacers should not be allowed. And I know that's controversial. In Europe, they don't allow them. I really wish in the U.S. Race directors don't allow pacers. And I really am not a big fan of crews either, but pacers especially. Well, why? Why don't you care about pacers? Why do you care about pacers? Well, they aid the runner and give a disadvantage to the runners who do go at it alone. I go at it alone. I've done 20-some ultras. I've never had a pacer, never had a crew. And I just find it more of a challenge, and it's more, I guess, raw, you know. It's 100% me against the course and the competitors and nature. And if you have someone pacing you, they can give you a lot of advantage, because you don't, when you're out there for 10, 15 hours or even longer in a 100-mile, 20-plus hours, you forget things. I remember 100K, my previous 100K at J&J, I forgot on the second lap, which was daylight again, I forgot to put on sun protection. I got really burned. If I had a pacer or a crew, they would have probably told me to put on sun protection, but I was really tired. Had been up for many hours and just forgot it. So they give some advantage, but one of the big things is they eat a lot of the food at the aid station. So if you have a couple hundred runners in a race, and let's say in the second lap, you know, the front of the pack and mid pack, if a lot of them have pacers, they're going to chew up a lot of the food that could be used by other runners that are coming behind them. Anyways, that's just my opinion. I know I'm in the minority, but I really wish race directors would consider that. But overall, I was happy. I finished the race and felt pretty good. Of course, I was beat up and really sore, but you know, I had no complaints. One funny thing was, you know, there was no coffee out there at the aid stations, and I don't know what the deal is. It seemed to me that, you know, a lot of the races in Texas used to have coffee at the aid stations, but the last couple ones haven't. So I need to prepare for that, because I'm a coffee addict. So when it gets late at night, I need coffee or some source of caffeine, but I prefer coffee. Just the caffeine from Red Bull or Tailwind or whatever just doesn't do it for me. It's just a different type of, caffeine. Anyways, one of the aid stations had instant coffee in these packets, but they didn't have any equipment to make the coffee. So I took one of the packets from them and I mixed it with the orange Tailwind. It kind of really tasted funny, and they were laughing at me, but it worked. So I just basically dumped the instant coffee in my bladder and just sloshed around and mixed with orange Tailwind, and that's how I got my caffeine. But it worked out all right. I remember in Javelina 100, I had my water bottle with me, and during the that I would carry in my hand, and I had a bladder on my back, but the water bottle that I carried in my hand, they had coffee at all their aid stations, but the coffee was always too hot. So I came up with the idea, which I thought was pretty clever. I poured in my water bottle and then dump some ice in there and just make it iced coffee. So you got to do what you got to do to make things work for you, and try to save as much time as you can. My equipment out of Bandera, like I said, I wore my Ultra Aspire Zygos hydration pack. It's a great pack. I highly suggest it. I'm sponsored by them. I'm an ambassador for them, so I promote their products, but I'm also stand behind them. I was using their products before I became an ambassador for them. I was also using Ultra Aspire waist light. Big fan of it. I've been using it for years, and I plan to buy their new one that just came out, and also a headlight. I do have Black Diamond light too that I wear on my head as a backup light, and if I get into really steep area going down in the rocky section, I'll turn on both lights. But for the most part, the waist light works really well, and their new waist light is kind of 3D, so you don't need the headlight. Shoes, I wear Ultra Olympus. I've been for many months been wearing Ultra Olympus. I've got my third pair now. I wore a new pair of 3.5s. It did great. I've also started using my older Ultra Olympus after they're getting worn out a few hundred miles. I wear them on the road. So my logic is it's helping me get used to the weight of the shoe and the type of the shoe all the time. So I used to wear Hoka's on the road. I still do that. I wear the Clifton, but I probably half the time on the roads I'm wearing my Ultra Olympus, my older ones. And it's just so you get used to that shoe. It's my key shoe for racing. I still have some Ultra Temps and Lone Peaks that I'll use for shorter races like a 50K or less. But my go-to shoe is Ultra Olympus for 100K and 100 miles. Gels, I use some Unived gels. I bought a couple boxes of them a couple months ago, and I use those. And the interesting thing is, they're real fluidy, easy. They're not very jelly, but because of the temperature, they were just right. I also used the V gels, V Fuel gels that were supplied by Tejas Trails. Those work well too. Chafing, I use Squirrel's Nut Butter. I'm sponsored by them. It's a great product. And one thing is, I need to get some of the stick version of the Squirrel's Nut Butter, which doesn't freeze, because the little tub of it I had froze. Good thing I had enough applied already. But great product. I highly recommend you check out Squirrel's Nut Butter for anti-chafing cream. Recovery tips. I want to talk a little bit about recovery. People ask me all the time, how do you recover from 100K or 100 miles? I think kind of a rule of thumb out there, a lot of coaches say, is you should take 1 day of rest for every 10 miles. So 100K is 62 miles, so it should be 6 days. But actually, it takes me less than that to get fully recovered so I can run again. I usually wait 4 days. So right now I'm 4 days, so tomorrow I'll start running. But after 2 days, I can start biking. So I like to do that. I call active recovery. I think it helps me recover faster. And I know that other people take a lot more time off, but I enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm not a pro. I just do it because I like to do it. It's a hobby. So I like to make the recovery time as minimal as possible, what's good for me so I don't get injured. It's the same thing about tapering. I'm not a big fan of tapering. I usually will slow down a little bit the week before. I won't run hills or anything very fast, but I do very little tapering, and I find that works best for me. I found that if I take a week off before a race, I'll be so tight, and it just doesn't do much for me. So I don't really do any tapering. And my recovery, 2 to 4 days. 4 days I can run again. Now, if it's 100 miles, probably 6 days I can run again. But after 2 or 3 days, either if it's 100K or a 100 miler, I can get on the bike. Bike's nice because you can get in a workout and you don't have that pounding. And also the week after a race, I increase my protein intake. I typically use a lot of whey protein, mix it with shakes. Also use some Recoverite from Hammer. It's also a type of protein, works really well. Yeah. But that's my tips for recovery. If you have some tips on recovery that are different than that, I'd love to hear them. Just send me an email. That's runnerrwe@gmail.com. In the last podcast, I made some predictions on the pros, and I got some of them right. Anthony Miller, who runs for Scott from Colorado, he got second. And there was one guy that just came out from the blue that I didn't know him too well. Drew Holman got first place. I mean, just an excellent runner. After checking on him, he got like fourth at North Face 50 in California last year. So great talent. I heard that in the last few miles that he basically went from third, fourth place and just lit up the course. And when he finished, he was like a minute in front of everyone. In the female field, I mentioned that I thought Elisa McDonald would do very well. I think I predicted her second, but she ended up getting first. And then another lady, I believe from Canada, which I forget her name. Anyways, two ladies from Canada won the race, if I remember right. Anyways, Elisa McDonald is definitely from Canada. She's won a lot of races, such as Javelina 100 mile, 100K. Well-known name. There was a lot of pros that came in from California and didn't do too well. Some even dropped out on the men and the women's side. So it was a great race. I think just, Tejas Trails had about 150 people out there volunteering, just did a great job. They always do. And that's the reason I really consider Bandera this was the Hoka Oni Bandera 100K. I think Bandera is really the biggest trail racing race in Texas every year. Maybe not by number of people, but due to it's a golden ticket race and the sponsors and what goes into it, the venue. I think I really consider it the top race of the year, and this year was no different. It did a really great job. Trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to go over this podcast, but I'm excited. Like I said, I'm excited for this Ruck race, and I'll be sharing my story. I'll be out there 2 days. I may even make a podcast while I'm out there running with this Ruck, and let everybody know what it's all about. It's going to be my first race, this format, so I'm excited. So I wish everyone a great week out there running. And like I said, my last podcast, Happy New Year. Wish everyone the best in 2020. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm Runner RWE on Instagram, Twitter, Strava. You can find me, Mile 62 Club. I have my own running club, and also Runner RWE. You'll find me. Facebook, TikTok, also Runner RWE. And all these avenues, mainly for running. I don't really use social media for posting family stuff and stuff. So this is very runner centric. I don't have other accounts. These are my only accounts on these social media platforms. Feedback and questions, please send me an email to runnerrwe@gmail.com. Happy to hear from you. If you're from Texas area and you'd like to be on the podcast, send me an email. I'd like to, interview you. I'm going to start doing more interviews. I haven't done too many to this point. My goal of the podcast is more to be like a technical blog, race recap blog. There are a lot of podcasts out there just interviewing all the elite runners. I mean, the elite runners, some of them I know them like they're my brother. I mean, I've heard 10 podcasts on them. My goal is to interview runners and race directors, doctors, whatever, that people are going to learn something from that they probably haven't listened to on another podcast. At least that's my goal. So in 2020, I'll be doing more interviews and mixing it up a little bit and try to get a podcast every week. So I think I've got some momentum going, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my podcast. Please give me a review if it's positive or negative. It helps me on iTunes, and subscribe if you'd like to. If you subscribe, it will automatically download to your phone or device, and it helps me. When you leave a review or subscribe, it gives me more traction in the outdoor category, so more people find out about my podcast. And I'd like to shout out to my sponsors again, Ultra Aspire for lighting and hydration, and Squirrel's Nut Butter for chafing cream. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.